common sense, because this is a very dangerous period for certainly for one of our very, very best friends and for the United States of America. And when I say one of our very best friends, I mean the Democratic State of Israel. I've worked, as you know, for Ronald Reagan, and Ronald Reagan is my hero. And I'm more than honored to say that. Ronald Reagan had an approach to Israel that I urge on all of you now, Republican, Democrat, whatever you are, if you're an American. Ronald Reagan always felt that a lot of the complications with Israeli policy was that it was driven a lot by American domestic politics. And his view of Israel was solely driven by foreign policy, or as everything he did, the best interests of the United States. Without using the label that Donald Trump uses of America First, he was an America First president to the core. Every question was, what's best for the United States? He saw Israel as one of our best friends. He saw Israel as on a par with the UK, let's say. And certainly during his era, the UK was one of our best friends because Margaret Thatcher preceded him in office by possibly a year or so. But she was already in office, and we could not have had a more favorable prime minister for the U.S. than Margaret Thatcher, or a better friend to Ronald Reagan. And he felt that Israel was the same way, and that our policies with regard to Israel have to be judged like that. It also was an outpost of democracy in a land of terrorism at the worst, despotism at the best. You couldn't find another democracy. You had a couple trying. And Israel, like the United States and our other friends, isn't perfect. You can find lots of things Israel does wrong, like you can with the United States. But they do a lot more right than wrong, and doing a lot better than anybody else in that region of the world in terms of respecting human life, respecting human rights, attempting to find peaceful solutions. Somehow, over a very long period of time, 30 years, I'd say, the rightness and the wrongness of decisions has been completely skewered by propaganda, public relations, and an insidious international press, driven a lot by communism. That's a little too deep right now, but it's something I just want to lay out as a background for what I'm about to say. There has been, as I think all of you know, an all-out attack on the sovereign state of Israel by the Palestinian Authority. Notice I said Palestinian Authority. I did not say what our person in the White House said, Hamas. I didn't say that because that's already both propounding and buying into the propaganda of the brainwashing we've gone through on Israel for about 30 years. There's no distinction between Hamas and the Palestinian Authority. When Hamas kills Americans and when Hamas kills Israelis, they're doing it in the name of the Palestinian Authority. And the Palestinian Authority has been governed by Fatah and Hamas now forever. And to think that Fatah is much better is only to forget who Yasser Arafat was. To our discredit and his, Bill Clinton forgot that and got double-crossed by him. I didn't forget it. I threw him out of the United Nations to try to tell the world he was a cold-blooded murderer and would eventually double-cross us. Even then, I turned out to be right, because he did double-cross us. And they're ready to do it again. And whenever these things happen, we make a distinction. Oh, poor little Palestinian Authority, the poor people there, they're treated so horribly. That's true. They are treated horribly by the dictators who rule them. Because for the longest time, Hamas is one of the most homicidal terrorist groups in the world, and Fatah is one of the most crooked terrorist groups in the world. Arafat basically never wanted peace, kicked Clinton in the ass and said, I don't want your agreement because I want your money. And his wife is sitting in the south of France, a multi-billionaire, with the money that should have gone to the Palestinian people, which is why they're so bitter. Unfortunately, their bitterness is turned to the following: being taught from the time they're 5 to kill Jews and to kill Americans, to kill Israelis, to kill Americans, which they have in common with the country very close to them called Iraq, which just recently, upon receiving $6 billion back from Biden, chanted in the streets, death to America, showing us what a sucker our president is. Very similar to the billions or hundreds of millions that Obama sent to them in cash. Now, that's the crux of the problem. This sneak attack, which is way beyond any recent kind of an attack on the state of Israel. And I've been to Israel after attacks. I did it twice when I was mayor, when there were brutal terrorist attacks to show solidarity with the people of Israel. And the first time to show solidarity with my good friend, the mayor of Jerusalem at the time, Ehud Olmert. I was the mayor of New York. As I pointed out to him, I think I had the largest Jewish city in the world. My relationship with Israel goes back to at least the mid-1980s when I was in the Biden, when I was opposing Biden on the issue of what they call Star Wars. And one of the people that I spoke with were Israeli counselor officials who saw the benefit of Star Wars for Israel. Eventually, that ended up being the Iron Dome. Biden was a big opponent of it, and we would laugh at it because Biden, I'm sorry, we would laugh at it because we considered him so stupid. And of course, he was stupid. We'd have no Iron Dome if it wasn't for Ronald Reagan. I have a letter from Bibi Netanyahu that I gave to Mrs. Reagan telling her that, thanking her husband for standing up to the liberal idiots and getting us a defense to nuclear, to not nuclear, rather, well, it could be nuclear, but to attacks by air, whether it be airplanes or missiles. An Iron Dome is challenged by the fact that everything is 10 to 100 miles away. We have time. They don't. I've seen Iron Dome. Bibi allowed me to look at it and see it and gave me a letter to thank Mrs. Reagan. And I have to tell you, the stress on Iron Dome is enormous. Today, one has to wonder about the quality of our intelligence. When just 2 weeks ago, Jake Sullivan, who is really a pathetic intelligence expert, he's really an expert at lying, pronounced that everything was very peaceful in the Middle East. Obviously, no one had any warning of this, which is, I mean, this is, again, another big question mark in 20 to 25 years of question marks in American intelligence gathering. But the real sadness here is this happened and didn't have to happen. Just like the invasion of Ukraine didn't have to happen. This is the result, in part, of an America without leadership, which is a world without leadership. This person we have in the White House is a poor excuse for a leader, and that leads to death, particularly when decisions are made that can only be explained by corruption, ideological or corruptions motivated by greed or extortion. I mean, just how much does Ukraine have on him? How much does China have on him? How much does Russia have on him? I mean, he is forcing Israel into the arms of Russia, as well as forcing them to make closer alliance with Saudi Arabia and pushing Saudi Arabia in the arms of China, which is maybe why he's doing it. Now, here's what I'm talking about. He today gave a pathetic response to this, to which the Palestinian Authority terrorists must have said, well, we know Israel's really not a friend, does not really have a friend in the United States. Now, why do they say that? Because If we were a friend of Israel, we would not have just allowed $6 billion to go to a country that is dedicated to the annihilation of the state of Israel. Nor would we have done it, by the way, to a country that would like to see Americans dead, unless we have a president that really doesn't care much about America, right? Right. Just like we had a president that sent cash to Iran when they're dedicated to the annihilation of the state of Israel and death to Americans. He sent them cash. Now, that was even clearer because the only reason they needed cash is because they give it to terrorists. Here, I don't think it was as much about the money as the symbolism. Let me see if I can make it personal. Because Ronald Reagan always said the way to look at Israel is like you do with friends. You have very few friends in life. And when your friends are in trouble, you got to be there for them. Well, let's get it down to personal relationships. Sitting across from me is my colleague, Ted Goodman. Suppose someone put out a $100,000 contract to kill Ted and was dedicated to the annihilation of Ted Goodman. And I went up to Ted and said, I'm your friend. And then I gave the people who want to do it $50,000. And they told me they're not going to use it to kill Ted, but they're still dedicated to killing Ted. Do you think Ted would believe me when I put out merely a 3-paragraph statement, hours late, and a 2.5-minute statement of friendship? He couldn't do better than that. I have the ridiculous statement that he put out. This statement was put out after Trump put out his statement. It was put out after I put out a statement, telling him he had to put out a statement. And it's 3 paragraphs for our best friend. And then he appears walking out there like a puppet of some kind with the yo-yo Secretary of State next to him. And he delivers, President Trump just said a 1.5-minute statement. It may be fact-checked. It was a 2.5-minute statement, at least as the way Ted and I counted it. Maybe Trump is right. But in any event, the worst attack on Israel in generations, a country fighting for its life against a country dedicated to its annihilation and to killing our people. And our president can afford 3 paragraphs that say nothing and a 2.5-minute statement, and then he coldly turns around and wobbly walks off. And the little puppet of a jerk Secretary of State follows him. What did we do to ourselves? What did we do to America when we elected him? How much longer are people going to die because of him? None of those people in Ukraine would be dead if you had reelected Donald Trump. You know that. Putin attacked 3 times recently under Biden, who just about invited it, under Obama, who he could look at and say, I can kick this guy all around the world. He used to look at him like that. And under Bush, he did not attack under Trump. And these people wouldn't either, because Trump would not have given $6 billion to a country dedicated to the annihilation of our friend. Money means a lot more than words, particularly when they are so brief that they show you don't give a damn for Israel. Cut it out, Biden. You and your party tolerate in your party vicious anti-Semites, and you do nothing about it. You're a disgrace. Now, what do? We got you sitting there, and apparently we don't have the guts to impeach you. We don't even have the guts to get you out under the 25th Amendment, and you don't know where the hell you are. So I would ask that the Congress of the United States Man, they should come together. They should get off their damn vacation and come back, and they should pass a resolution supporting Israel. And they should say the Palestinian Authority gets held responsible for what Hamas does, because they should eliminate Hamas. And they don't become anything like a state until they can prove for 10 years that they're not a terrorist state. Because why, under God's heaven, would America want to create another terrorist state dedicated to the wiping out of our friend and the killing of Americans? Their children are taught to kill us at the earliest age. Not Hamas children, not just Fatah children, Palestinian children. I feel bad for all children, but I feel the most for our children and the children of Israel. And if they are going to train their children to kill us, we cannot make them a state. We can't fall for the bullshit propaganda that comes from Europe and from Russia and from China and from communists. No money for Iran. More sanctions. Let the protests continue. They were beginning to wobble until their friends came back, meaning the Democratic Party, the party of slavery. Loves them. It sure gives them a lot of money, even in cash sometimes. Well, Congress has got to stand up, and a couple of those Democrats, please, God, I pray that some of those Democrats begin to act like Americans. By the way, wouldn't be bad if a couple of our Republicans started to act like Americans too and put this country first. Not China, not Iran, America. We're not even in the equation. I pray to God that this awakens among good Americans a real feeling that by legal means this man has to go now, not just at election time. If we get to election time, at election time, and Congress has got to assert itself a lot more than it has. Stop fighting over a speaker and start fighting with a president who doesn't have the mental capacity to be president, who doesn't have the ideological grounding to be president, and who appears to be compromised by our enemies. Appears to be? Well, only a jerk would say appears to be. I'm sorry, I'm not a jerk. Is compromised by our enemies. So we'll be back with you on Monday on WABC.com, which you can get anywhere around the United States. It'll be at 3 o'clock Eastern time. And then at 8 o'clock, we'll be back on social media, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Getter, just about all of them. And we'll probably have a lot more about this, and we'll see what Israel has in mind for them. I know Bibi since 1985, and I know Ehud since Ehud Olmert. They were young ministers in the same government when I first met them, and I was a young minister, I guess, in the sub-cabinet level minister in the Reagan administration. And we have been lifelong friends, not on and off, but continuously. And they are opponents now. But I have a great deal of warmth and admiration and personal friendship for both of them. My heart goes out to them. Israel's very lucky to have them. It's very lucky to have Benjamin Netanyahu right now, just like we would be very lucky if we had kept Ronald Reagan, and a lot of people would be alive today who aren't. Well, we didn't, and we have a few ways to rectify it legally. The 25th Amendment, even if we get Harris, who knows? She may have more caring for America than this man. It may not have certainly doesn't have the mental illness that he has, and I doubt is corrupt like he is. I don't think anyone is. And certainly hasn't been compromised by China, I don't think. It can't be worse. And a matter of principle and as a matter of precedent, we have to do, our country shouldn't tolerate a president who is incompetent and disloyal to the United States. The decisions that he's making, like giving up the Bagram base 400 miles from China, that nobody talks about, is disloyal. Letting the soldiers go in Afghanistan before the civilians got the civilians killed. And Afghanistan never had to happen the way it did. And then Ukraine wouldn't have happened. Think of all the people that are dead from fentanyl because he won't close the border and lies about it. How much more are we going to take before somebody stands up? The only one to go directly at him is me. I developed the first evidence of criminality, beaten to hell over that. Put out the hard drive, myself and Bob Costello with John Mac Isaacs. They're attempting as best they can to destroy me over that. And they're succeeding. But I'm not going to let them succeed. I can't pretend they haven't done tremendous damage. But I'll prevail because of you. Because the American people, they're seeing through this now. And this is about our survival, the survival of our friends. So this is a weekend of holy days, right? It's the end of a Jewish holiday tomorrow. And tomorrow's Sunday. So let's all pray to God that he gives some real help to the country that has always been dedicated to him. And even though there are many enemies of that, there still are very, very strong Americans who realize that our rights come from God and our obligations are to God to keep this country free and safe and decent and to pass it on to our children better than it was given to us. God bless you. God bless the state of Israel. And God bless the United States of America. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do